Hi, everybody, and welcome to the Figma for EDU monthly workshop. My name is Miggy. I'm joined by Joanna. Today, we're going to begin with Figma Motion. What Figma Motion is a new tool that just works in the Figma design canvas. Currently, I'm in Figma design. If you are in the file that we are in, when you select a frame and you see this little icon in the right-hand corner, that icon is going to match the icon that is down here in the toolbar. When you hover over that icon, you're going to see Motion Beta. Motion is currently in beta, but it is available for everybody on Education tier. When I click on that, what's going to happen is any animation that's taken place inside of this frame, you will see it here. You will see a timeline that's associated with it. As I begin to click and drag along that timeline, I will see some animation transpire. The way that Figma works, you're going to have objects that you add to frames. Those objects are going to have properties. Some of those properties are going to be an X and Y property, which are their position. There's going to be scale properties. There's going to be color properties. There's going to be rotation properties. All of those properties are what we change. You'll see that over here on the left. Those properties are what we're going to be changing over time. Here in this example, if I press play over here in the far left, or if I press the space bar, you will see that animation play out. Animations will play within the frames that you have in Figma. What you do is you apply changes to the properties over time, and then what you do is you change how that animation is distributed over time. Just looking at this animation right here, you can click around. These keyframes denote the changes in properties. If we see this object coming down, we're changing the Y position. As we see it go back up, we're changing the Y position up. As we see it rotate and move left to right, we see it overshoot and go over to the right. We're moving its X position. So think of it as like a little graph. And then it's going to rotate as it moves off of this page. So in a nutshell, that is the concept that we're dealing with here. When we hit play, we will see that animation loop. That animation is looping because over here, you'll see there's that play. Over here, we have auto keyframe, which is going to allow you to animate a little bit more easily. We have the current time. We have the total duration of the timeline. That's how long the timeline is, as well as a looping. So if it plays once, it'll just play once, stop. It's not going to start again without your intervening. You're going to come in here, you're going to click. And if I hit play, right now, this is going to ping pong. It's going to go forward and then it's going to go back, forward and back. You could determine how the timeline is going to play. Now, that's just the first example. Now let's take a look at a frame. You're going to notice down here, there's design mode and there's animation mode or motion mode. Design mode is where you're going to create the graphics. Let's say if you're going to draw on a rectangle or a circle or a more complex graphic or work with an image. I'm going to be right here in design mode. I'm going to show you the construction of what we have here. I have a frame. Inside of that frame, there is an arrow. This is a path, a little arrow. Inside of there, there is an ellipse. That is inside of this frame. Now, when I select this object, you're going to see the properties over here, the X, the Y, rotation. What we're going to be doing is we're going to be assigning and changing those values over time. We're going to start off with keyframes, but I'm going to show you a concept that is also a little bit easier and you can use in conjunction with the keyframes to help you animate a little bit more easily. All right, so in design mode, we set stuff up. In animation mode, we then animate it. We're going to start here in the beginning and we want to think about how we're going to move this around. For now, let's think about animating this in from the top. What I'm going to do is I'm going to come over here. I'm going to turn on auto keyframe. When auto keyframe is on, as soon as I begin to make changes, and I move this playhead, notice the playhead is red. I'm going to make changes. If I make a change and I bring this down and I'm going to drag it down to the bottom and you'll see it snap. I'm over here at the 600 millisecond mark. So that's just under a second or just over half a second. And you'll see that it's going to animate from that first keyframe. Now, I can click on that first keyframe that we have here. I can move it over left and right, and I'm going to drag this all the way up to the top. Notice when I move my cursor right here, I can also change its wide position in the properties panel. I can move that up. When I press spacebar, I can come over here, I can press spacebar, and I can see that animate from the top down to the bottom. For now, I'm going to turn off auto keyframe. I just wanted to show you that it was there. It's a good way to begin to start so you can see it automatically create keyframes for you. But what I want you to do is I want you to see, how do we make this feel better? What we're going to do to alter that is we're going to click in between those two keyframes. In between those two keyframes is what's known as a tween. The computer is basically figuring out how do we go from point A to point B, but it's doing so with a linear curve. If you've followed some of my workshops previously where we've covered prototyping and Smart Animate, this concept is no different. A linear curve is constant motion. Constant motion is robotic. We don't like the way that that feels. It's too even and it's not going to look realistic. What we want to do is we want to think about how this is falling. When it's at the top point, it's going to be starting slow and then gaining speed as it hits the ground. What we're going to do here is we are going to apply what is known as an ease in. If I come to this drop down and I select ease in, it's going to draw out an ease in for us. What that means is it's starting off slow and then gaining speed. I'm going to select the middle. Notice that as I change this curve, you're going to see it updated on the timeline in between those two keyframes. What I'm going to do is I'm going to drag this Bezier handle. I'm going to drag that Bezier handle to the right. And if you start dragging it and hold down the Shift key, it'll keep it nice and straight. So this is an ease in. It's going to be a little bit more dramatic and it's going to feel a little bit more realistic. So there it is. It's going to bounce down. And let's say we wanted to bounce up a little bit again. Let's say I'm going to move this over. I'm going to drag this up and it's going to create a keyframe for us. And so it's going to come up. And then let's say we want to go back down. We're going to come down, boom, and it goes up for a moment. And then we're going to just bring that down just a little bit closer. We're animating this over time. I also want it to just basically match the position of this previous keyframe. I could just copy that. So I can select that keyframe. If I want to move the playhead over to the keyframe, I just double click it and then I can press Command C and then I can move the playhead over and then Command V and just paste it. Now we have a little animations coming in. And so it's going to play down. And we just want to think about applying motion here. This one is linear and this one is also an ease in. When it goes back up, what we want it to be is actually an ease out because it has that speed and it's slowing down. And then it's going to come down with an ease in again. So ease in, ease out, ease in. And let's just watch that play. Boom, boom. And it's going to feel realistic or pretty close. We can always make an adjustment on that ease in, and it's going to feel a little bit better. So pretty simple, not that hard to consider. Now, when we're animating, I'm going to select another frame and I'm going to hit the space bar. Many of the frames in this file are going to have animations associated with them. Unlike other animation applications where you're just centered in on just the one, any frame or any object in Figma can begin to have these keyframes associated with them. And previously in Figma, it might be difficult. It might be difficult when you might want to change the anchor point of an object. If we take a look at this animation right here, this object, as it's rotating, is rotating from one edge and not the other. And I'm going to walk you through exactly how that works. What I'm going to do is I'm actually going to come over here. I'm going to select all of these objects right here. Actually, there's only one object, but I'm not saying there's one object here. I'm just going to go ahead, come down here, and I'm going to just press delete. I just deleted the animation for that object. If you deleted something that was incorrect, you can always hit Command Z, bring it right back. But I'm going to select the gauge that's right here. I'm going to press delete because I want to personally animate this one. What we have here is just a few objects that are set up. We have a circle, and then we have a sort of like a rectangle. I'm going to go back into design mode. I'm going to rotate it. And the one thing you're going to see is that over here on the right, there is like an anchor point for the object. When you're in design mode, to pull up the anchor point for any object to change where its pivot point is from, the shortcut key for that is Option R. And it's going to bring up this little pivot point that you can then move around. If I move the pivot point to that side, it's going to rotate from that side. If I move the pivot point down here, then when I rotate, it's going to rotate from that pivot point. It's also known as an anchor point, or there's many different names for this. I'm going to move this over here to the right because that's going to allow us to rotate that just a little bit better. Now, this is surfaced inside of motion mode a little bit more clearly. When I select this object, I can come over here under the transform panel and you'll see edit anchor point, and it'll also highlight the shortcut. For me, it's going to be Option R. For many of you on Windows, it's going to be Alt R. I'm going to click that. It's going to highlight it and it's going to let me move it to wherever I need to. Moving it to that far right corner will then allow me to rotate the position of this object. Once again, we're going to move to the beginning of the animation here on the timeline. I'm going to come over to transform. I'm going to add a keyframe. We want to think about where that property is going to start. And then I'm going to move the timeline over. We're going to think about how long does it take to move all the way over. Now, over here, you're going to see on the right-hand side, you're going to see this like little gray bar. You can drag it, and you'll also know that it's going to snap to keyframes. What that is the end of the timeline. So if I move that over to 2 seconds, you're going to see that the total time for this timeline, the duration, is just under 2 seconds. I can change that by typing in 2000 milliseconds. If I click, it'll change to seconds, milliseconds or seconds. Now that is 2 seconds long. If I decide I'm going to rotate this, I need to move that playhead over to about 1 second, and I'm going to drag this all the way over to the right. Notice it didn't create a keyframe. I'm going to click the keyframe right there. It's going to create that keyframe. And now with this keyframe, what I'm doing is I'm changing that property. And so now when I press the space bar, you're going to see it animate. When I press the space bar, it's going to play. Notice how I'm just dragging it and like starting it over. I want to get a sense for what that feels like. The longer that time is, the more drawn out it's going to feel, and it's going to feel very slow. I'm going to drag that over to the left, about a half a second. You're going to realize that as you're animating things, especially for user interfaces, that you're going to be in the sub-second spacing. So about a quarter of a second is 250 milliseconds. 0.5 would be about half a second. And you're going to realize that that might start feeling very, very sluggish as well. We can always click on this. This here is an ease in, ease out. As I drag that to the left and to the right, what that's going to do is it's going to speed up and then it's going to slow down. Most of the motion that you see in your everyday life is some degree of speed up, speed down, or ease in, ease out. And you're going to notice that that type of motion is going to feel a little more natural. Here, from going from its start position to the end position, we see it speed up and then it slows down to its main position. Now, the more vertical that center point is, the faster it is in that midpoint. So maybe we slow that down. A couple things I want to highlight here. Notice this bar up at the top that represents all of the animation for the current layer. If we drag that whole layer, we're effectively changing all of the properties for that as well. There we go. And the more keyframes you add, so I can drag this all the way out, then I can create another keyframe, have it move up and then down, and then another one. We can move it up and then down. These little details are going to give it a bit more personality. So as we're dragging, you're going to see that that personality is there. And you want to think about this has a bunch of those ease in outs. You can hold down the shift key and click many of those at the same time to adjust them together. So now they all have that same property. And you're going to see how that animation is going to play there. All right. Next up, many of you are talking about wireframes and talking about UI and how might you begin to animate things that are more sort of like UI centric. This right here, when we go into design mode, this is an auto layout frame. Somebody asked, is animation copied from one object to the other as a property? I'm actually going to answer that question. That was a fantastic question. I'm going to go back to our previous frame. I'm going to come right here. This whole animation, all of those keyframes, I can copy those keyframes. I can go to this other object. I can delete. Oop, I don't want to delete the whole object. I want to delete the other object's keyframes. There we go. I deleted the other object's keyframes and I can just paste them. And now it too has some animation. Its orientation point might be a little bit different. So if I go back here to that first frame, I can set its starting point there in the design. And now you'll see they both have those same keyframes. You can copy and paste those keyframes, those properties from one object to the other just as easily. And as I mentioned before, if I drag this playhead, all of those keyframes are going to be adjusted relative to the object. By dragging that whole playhead or that whole layer, you're going to see how that works out. Awesome. And someone asked a question, is it possible to create animation on a component? Absolutely. You can create nested animations with components. It'll be a concept that we're going to cover in just a little bit as well. Here, this is an auto layout frame. I'm going to select this frame. I'm going to move the playhead over. I'm going to press the space bar to play this. And we're going to see this object come in and it's going to animate. And so what we're going to do is I'm actually going to just once ahead. Again, I'm going to delete this animation. Let's get rid of all of those keyframes. So those keyframes are gone, but my object is still there. I'm going to click over to design mode so you can see this frame. Here I have an auto layout frame with a couple rectangles that are inside of it. I actually misnamed that. So auto layout. That's how you know a human made that frame. Auto layout frame, we have 3 different rectangles. We might want to think about how we may animate this here. These different objects are nested inside of this frame. And so what we're going to do, also great question. Someone asked about dev mode. Yes, all of these keyframes are going to go straight to code in dev mode. Everything that you're seeing here is essentially represented as code. If that's going to keep you like just jazzed up for animating, like totally here for it. This frame right here, yeah, it's actually really cool. I like the way that they did the dev mode implementation. So here, this card, as we have those objects inside, I'm going to go into design mode now, or into motion mode, on my bad. And what we're going to do is we're going to animate these individual pieces, even though they're structured within the auto layout. The type of animation that we're performing here are transforms. So we're not inherently changing the position of the object. We're applying a transform the same way that would be accomplished in CSS. When I select this object here, let's say we want this to be where it eventually ends up. So we want to change where it starts from. I'm going to say about half a second right here. We're going to create a position keyframe, and I'm going to move the keyframe, the playhead over, and we can then just move that off of the frame. The one thing I'll highlight is the containing auto layout frame has clip content turned on. If I turn that off, you'll see what's there. I could turn clip content back on and you see it's within that frame. It's nested and it's moving itself over. So here you're going to notice we have a linear animation. I'm going to show y'all a fun little trick that's going to make your life so easy after we're done putting all these in place. Here I have that frame. I'm going to copy it. And I could just paste it to all 3. There you go. Now all 3 are coming in at the same time. Now to apply a bit of variation, let's say we want to stagger this. The first one, that actually comes in is down here at the bottom. Then we want the second one to come in, and then we want the third one to come in. Just as easy as that. Now they're staggered in, and that's looking pretty good. They still have that linear motion, but we're going to solve that in just a moment here. Next up, we want to think about how might this card animate into this frame. I'm going to move this all the way over to the left. We are going to click on that keyframe. I want to select the object I want to animate. Here, remember, it's the auto layout frame, it's the parent. I want y'all, as you're working on this, especially if you're new to Figma, remember the relationship of the object, where it is on the canvas, and then its sort of representation in that motion timeline. It only shows up in the motion timeline after it has a keyframe associated with it. We're going to select it here in the layers panel. Going to come over here to the right, click on that position keyframe. There it is. And we are going to move it into place. I can easily move this over. One thing you're going to notice is that as I'm moving these keyframes, they snap, and that's snapping is going to be really helpful as you are structuring your animation and playing this through. We're going to have this animate in. I'm going to have this animate in at about right about there. And we're going to have it come from off the screen. I'm going to move this up, so just off screen, and we're going to see that represented with that keyframe. That's going to come in, and then those cards are going to, the content are going to animate into place. I'm going to hold down the Shift key and select all three of those layers. Shift key, click, 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 and then we're going to move, we're going to then move those over. At any point, if you need to adjust sort of the relative scale of your timeline, you can adjust your zoom level here. You can also press Command and use the scroll wheel on your mouse, or what you can do is also use the trackpad, like pinch and zoom gesture. Right here, I can increase that and decrease that. We're going to apply the object coming in first, then all three of those coming into place. And I mentioned we're going to handle the easing for this in a slightly different way. What we're going to do is create an easing variable. You may have certain easing curves that you want to use over and over again. You know, manual insertion and editing of those for your design system might be too cumbersome. Let's change that right now. I'm going to click on the stage onto the canvas. Sorry, I'm going to come over here to the right. I'm going to open up my variables panel. Let's collapse my variables panel. I don't need it taking up all the space. I'm going to create a new variable in this document. Notice we now have timing and easing. I'm going to click on easing over here. I'm going to create a nice ease in and out. Notice you can also make them with spring animations, but we just want to adjust this ease in out. When in doubt, ease in out. And now that we have that custom ease built in here, I'm going to call this the Miggy ease. And now that that variable has been named, what I can do is I can come over here, and in this space, I can create a variable associated with it. Hold on one second. I do believe that they changed the UI on me recently. Let me just see exactly where that is. Oh no, there should be option for variable. Let's see, is it plus create variable? Okay, cool. There's my variable. Here, I'm going to click plus. They change its location. New variable, I'm going to choose an existing variable. I'm going to find my Miggy ease. I'm going to click on that right there. There's my Miggy ease, and you're going to see it then applied. I can select on all of these at the same time. I can choose the Miggy ease, and there it is. It's now been applied to every single one of these. Let me just double check, and I should be. Hold on. There it is. The Miggy ease. Miggy ease has been applied. Let's go. Miggy ease. We're going to set it right here. Miggy ease and Miggy ease. There we go. Now when I hit play, we have it looking fantastic. If I make any adjustments over here to my variables, oh, I created an alias version of it. That's what I did. All right, I'm going to just say the Miggy alias, alias. Now, when I go over here, I can actually adjust any of those values. If I want to make this an ease in, out, back, that has a little bit of overshoot, we could do that as well. Now, when I hit it, each one of those has the ease in, out, back. And as you extend the duration of it, that just makes it a little bit slower, but it still uses the same relative ease. There we go. Couple things I do want to cover here too. Looping is totally a thing that you could do. You might be making an animation. So here, yeah, I'm just below that frame right there. You might be making an animation and you might want your objects to like loop independently of each other. So these sparkles, I want them to continuously go up and down, but I don't want to just end my timeline over here. I want them to continue on. I can right click on the property track and then say loop track. And then now that'll continue looping. Watch as this plays through, that object right there is continuing to loop. And what's cool is I can even snap to those keyframes. If I hold the shift key, it'll snap. It'll snap, it'll snap, it'll snap. And let's do that with another one. Let's right click, let's say loop track. Let's right click, let's say loop track. And yes, I have requested being able to do this on multiple layers at the same time. So let's hope that the team gives us the ability to loop multiple tracks. There you go. You can see these little like looping tracks just go on and on and on. And then I could drag this all the way out. And let's say we wanted a 16-second animation of this just going on and on and on and on. Now we have that with loop track. This is something that I've always wanted in other animation tools. And now that I get that here, I just absolutely love it. I'm not even going to front. I'm not even going to lie. It's fantastic. Okay, we're going to get into motion styles and keyframes. We have a lot more to cover. Right now, we've been primarily focusing on keyframes. So keyframe, you begin to decide the actual property and how you're changing and adjusting it. However, we also have motion styles. Motion styles are going to appear a little different on the timeline, and you're going to notice this animations tab up here. And what that's going to do, let's say if I play this, it's going to apply a position. All of those properties are going to be listed here as you begin to edit them. If you have been using prototyping in Figma previously, this is going to seem very familiar to you. I'm going to delete those and just show you really quickly how to apply these animation styles. Here I have this object. I can come up here to animations and I can think about this the way that I may articulate that animation. So I'm going to change the position. I want it to slide in. I can say I want it to slide in from the top. I could say how much of a distance I want it to slide in from. I could just increase that number. We're going to slide in for all the way from like 456. We can set a delay. So how long before it slides in does it actually place? And then how long the duration of that. And that is where timing variables is going to come into play. I can associate my timing variables with this animation and then update and change that there. If you are working with a design system, you starting to implement a motion design system, that will give you the ability to associate those variables. And then even here, I can apply my MIGI ease and we can see that play. And now you see it come in and it's just as easy as that. I can move this left and right. And so let's say I wanted it not only to move in from the top, but I also want it to fade in. I can add in, oops, I replaced that one. I don't want to replace it. I want to add to it. Let's add in another animation and we're going to choose opacity and we're going to say fade in. We want it to fade in 100% and we're going to watch that play out. And I can move the opacity so it happens at a different point in time. We're going to have it fade in from, I think 0. There we go. 0. Is it going to fade in? Yeah, there we go. We're going to fade in from 0. We have a delay. So that's how far it is from the left-hand side. That duration, we could bring it down to 400 milliseconds. And then once again, we could apply our MIGI ease if we wish. And we can then play that. Boom. And then that'll animate in just like that. And you can copy and paste these and apply them to other objects. Motion styles can be mixed and matched with keyframes. Here you could see we have an object that is being animated in. This object makes use of a concept that we haven't talked about quite yet. This is known as a motion path. In Figma, you've probably used vector Bezier handles before. If I hold down the command key, the control key on Windows, and click on each of those points, I can basically create and manage how I am going to animate this in. So I could actually adjust the positioning of that. I'll show you that really quick in a new frame. I'm going to press F. I'm going to draw in an object. I'm going to, let's say, draw in just a simple rectangle. And here I'm going to set a position from the far left. And then over here at about half a second, we're going to move it to the far right. And we're going to see that animation play through. Let's apply our Miggy ease right here. Oh man, where it is? Oh, libraries. There it is. Okay, cool. So I'm going to apply my Miggy ease. And what we want to do is we want to change that straight line. We don't want it to be a straight line. I'm going to move that object to the middle. We're going to hover over that keyframe. We're going to hold down the command key. And then now I could draw a nice little Bezier handle and we can get more of a curvilinear motion. I'm going to drag this all the way out so it's a little bit longer. It's going by too fast. And you can see how that plays out. You could have much more control. If I drag in another keyframe right here, same thing, I can begin to control how and where this thing moves. If I want it to look a little bit more like a roller coaster, there we go. We have our animation playing just like that. All right. One other thing I want to talk about here, we're also going to be talking about trim path and exporting SVGs and shader effects and all this other stuff. One thing I want to talk about here is that just like a methodology of my approach to working with motion. Oh, by the way, yeah, each of these had like a fun little animation on them. There we go. I had fun little animations on all these. We're going to talk about build-ups, complexity with simple concepts. So animation might feel a little overwhelming at first. Sometimes you're going to see these like really complex animations. Just like design, what you want to do is you want to start with a simple concept and then you can build up from there. I want to show you the journey that I went through when I first started working with Figma and Motion and beginning to test things out to see how might I like improve the tool or give feedback to the tool. Right here, this is just a simple object inside of a frame. And what we're doing is I'm just rotating it from that pivot point, like left and right. So you see it goes from rotation of 0 to a rotation of 75 and back. Then I thought about, hey, this is nested inside of a frame. What if I nested another frame inside of that frame? What might that look like? Here, when I select that, we basically have two objects. The way that this is structured is that there is just like a copy of that one frame inside of that frame. I can show you how that works. Let's say I move all the way. Let's say I go back to the like design mode. I'm going to delete that second object. Here I have that first object. I call it a duder. I'm going to go ahead and duplicate the duder by hitting Command D, Control D if you're on Windows. Notice how it placed it right above itself. What I'm going to do is I'm going to move that duder down and I'm going to nest it inside of that first frame. You see what I just did there? I nested it. When I hit play, they're now rotating and acting almost like a concept known as inverse kinematics. Then I was like, okay, that's cool. What if I added a third? This is a third nested object that's inside. And I was like thinking, okay, well, what else can be done with such a concept? What I did was I took this object in design mode. So here's my object. All three of them, they have an animation associated with them. I'm going to press the K key and just scale it down. And then we're going to go back into motion just to see if that works. There we go. Now back in design mode, I took this. I'm going to hold down the Option key to duplicate it. And then I rotated this, right? There we go. Now I have two of them. They're both like facing each other, right? And I was like, that's pretty cool. I can align them. Notice I'm in design mode. I'm in the static mode, but in motion mode, they all have keyframes associated with it. If I hit play with this frame selected, I get this cool motion. Then I was like, okay, so back in design mode, I can duplicate those, Command D, and then just rotate. And let's do that. Let's duplicate and rotate. And so now that I have that, I built up this complex thing. If I was to manually animate all of these, it would take me forever. But what's cool is that the objects retain the animation, giving me the ability to make something a little more complex. Yeah, so I resulted in something that looks like this. Now, one thing, this is going to be an important concept that I want y'all to think about too, is I was like, all right, this is great, but what if I want to like pan in and pan out, or like zoom in and zoom out on this object? In design mode, all I have to do is just draw another frame around it, right? I've drawn another frame. All of these objects are in this frame. So I'm going to call this my camera, right? My camera has all of those objects inside. I can select that camera frame, press enter. I'm selecting all of the nested objects, and let's just center them, right? And even here, I can center it. In design mode, I can make everything perfectly centered and arranged. And now in motion mode, now that I have this camera, I can zoom in and zoom out. We haven't yet talked about zoom in, zoom out, or scaling as a property. Here, this frame is selected. I'm gonna come over here to the right and add a keyframe for that scale. There it is. It's scaled down. And over here in the middle, I'm gonna hold down the shift key so it snaps to that keyframe. We're gonna scale up, create a new keyframe, and we're gonna scale that up. And then I'm gonna just copy that first keyframe because we're gonna loop back to that original point. I'm gonna copy that keyframe. I'm gonna move all the way over here, hold on the shift key, it'll snap, and then hit paste. And now we have zoom in and zoom out, right? And if we want it to maybe zoom in even more, I could click on that keyframe and we have it zoom in more drastically. And then there we go. Now we have more complexity, right? We're structuring it, we're building it, we're thinking about how we're enhancing those concepts. And then that led to the building of my little jellyfish here. Same thing, I thought of applying those nested frames. I have a main frame here. I just hit Command Y. This is outline mode. So it lets you see all the different containers. I'm moving this up and down and providing that animation. Instead of thinking of all of those objects, I just have two and I'm rotating them to the left. There's a lot you can do as you begin to build up in Figma Motion. Running a little bit short on time, so I want to cover some more things for you here. Trim path and animated strokes is really amazing. It's a concept that already exists in code, like for SVG and CSS. What that's going to do is allow you to animate a start and a stop position on any path that you have. I have here, oh, this one has a special effect on it. I'm going to turn off my shader effect. So there we go. I'm going to turn off the shader effect just so you can see this here. This is just a single frame, a single path. Well, actually, there's two of them. You're right. There's the T. This is a path. And all I'm doing is I'm revealing it and removing it, right? And I'm going to show you how that's done. In this frame here, I'm actually going to go over to Figma Draw. Figma Draw all the way on the left. I'm going to come over here to my brushes in Figma Draw. I'm going to choose the Melodrama brush because it's my favorite brush. I'm going to just come in and say like, what is it? Like YOLO, YOLO. Let's say that doesn't look that pretty, but I can increase the stroke. And then over here, I can even simplify the paths. So if you blinked, you missed it. You come down here with that object selected. I click simplify. I'm going to drag this to the left and it's going to clean it up just a little bit, right? Let's say I come in here. I'm going to do a little shift delete. There we go. That looks a little bit better. And we're going to increase the stroke. I have my little yellow graphic and we're going to go back to motion. And now in motion, when I go over to the stroke that we have here, this is just a stroke. We can set like a keyframe for a trim path. I'm going to add a keyframe. This is the starting position, right? So if I drag this all the way to the right, we're moving the start all the way to the right. How cool is that? Look at that. That's awesome. And it's going to go from 0 to 100%. Over here, this is the end keyframe. So if I drag that to the left, it's where the end is, right? What we could do is I can animate this in by, let's say, starting just at 1%, moving the timeline over to 2, and then setting that value then to 100. Here we go. It draws in. And so that's great. Now, let's say if we wanted to erase, I can move that start position right here and do the same thing where we're then going to erase it. Let's have it just yellowed out for like about half a second. And then I'm going to move that position over. And what we're going to do is we're then going to move the start position so it animates out to about 100%. And so now when we play it, it'll animate in. and then it'll animate out. And if I want to, let's say at this first position right here, we could set that actually as 0. I can play that, it'll animate, and then it'll animate its way out. One thing that I like to do, notice how the front of these strokes don't look so great. You can animate the stroke weight. I'm going to click a keyframe right here, and I'm going to set, not for the stroke color, but yes, you can animate the color as well. I'm going to set the stroke weight value right here of 38. I'm going to have it start from 0, and we're going to watch it grow. I can actually grow at the same time, and that's going to make the animation look that much better. Same thing, I'm going to copy those keyframes. I'm going to paste them over here, and then I'm just going to reverse them. I want that thickness to be there and then move it out. That's the 38, and that is the 0, and we got the nice little yellow animation. Now, remember what I mentioned about timing? The timing is that whole layer. I could drag this all the way to the left. I can move that, the end loop, and then we could just have it like yellow in and yellow out. How cool is that? All right, over here, if you want to take a look, I also am animating like arcs. If you're familiar with the circle tool, you can animate the arc position. I have a couple examples here. I'm not going to cover them right now. I'm actually going to make a little video and share out on social how those arc values are adjusted, but it's essentially these values: the start, the sweep, and the ratio is going to help you create a like little loader animation. And then this is just those with some effects applied to that to make that animation out there. All right, so exporting. Exporting is going to be huge. You can export as an MP4, GIF, and an SVG. If I were to come over to this object and let's say this animation, I want to export it, I select that frame. I'm going to come over here to the right where it says export animated MP4, choose the size, the quality, and then I could just export that frame. It's going to take me to another window that is then going to give me a progress bar to then download. You saw how fast that was. I could save that to my desktop and I can see a preview of that video right here and just download it right there. It tells you the actual size, the frames per second. So amazing. You can export as that as well. One thing that I do want to highlight too is that if you're going to go into dev mode, in dev mode, you can use MCP server to copy and provide context for your animation. So you can copy that example prompt. But the one thing that I do want to highlight is here, you can open up a timeline view, and while you're in dev mode, any layer that you select, you will then see the CSS keyframe animation for. I know somebody was asking about this earlier, but essentially all of these values are represented in code. So when we're talking about the easing value, that is that timing function, that cubic Bezier, you're going to see that played out right here, just as you would expect it to. And then as well, you can export from this mode as well. So either the full animation or the what is that? The full animation as a GIF, an MP4, or as SVGs. Yes, we do also handle animated SVG graphics. So next up, shader effects. I know we only have about 8 more minutes, but we might go just a little bit over to cover some of these concepts. Now, one key thing here is a lot of the shader effects that are in Figma. I'm going to go to this frame. I'm going to explain what a shader effect is. It's basically an effect that takes a look at the layer and does some really amazing graphic visualization. If I were to take a look at this inflate, you're going to see the sheer amount of properties that are involved in basically taking anything that's on the canvas and then making it to appear in the way that it does. Piers Calburn, by the way, this shader is a 3D inflate shader. If you're in this file, you can get a copy of it from the Figma community there. These shaders can also be animated on the timeline. I'm going to show you exactly what that means in just a moment. That one doesn't have animation, but this one does. Yes, if you're familiar with Figma and you're seeing this in Figma for the first time, you're just like, wait, how in the world is this in Figma? What a shader is it basically takes a look at that design. I'm going to hide them right now, right? This is the basic animation that I have. This is using the same concept that we covered with the jellyfish. And so just using those nesting objects, I then take that frame and then I can apply a shader effect. I'm going to show you exactly how to access those shaders. Right now, to build your own shaders on EDU, we don't provide the Figma agent. The Figma agent would be found here. Shaders in Figma can be prompted, so you can decide what type of effect you want to create. In the meantime, we've actually created a number of effects that you can begin to work with. Let's highlight a simple one here. I'm just going to draw out a frame. I'm going to put a rectangle inside of it. With that frame selected, I'm going to show you where our existing shader effects live. Here, you're going to see shader beta under effects. Effects are basically going to be applied to a frame and anything within the frame. Here, there's some that I've actually created, but you're going to see a number of effects that also exist that are like Figma made. If I were to come down here and choose, let's say there's a dither one, there's a color effects, I'm going to find a halftone. I thought we had a halftone. I'm going to type in halftone. There it is, halftone. When I apply halftone, it's basically going to apply to the graphic as you see it right there. This is applying to everything within that frame. I can make adjustments to that as well. And once again, the thing that I want to highlight is you're going to see keyframes all the way here for these values. I can create let's say if I want to create a keyframe for the halftone of the dot size and then like increase the dot size, right? We're going to see that animation play out in the same way that you would animate anything else. Shader effects are going to give you just a lot of control. Once again, these are also created with shader effects. So by going to this 3D inflate, I could actually like live make adjustments on how this is rendering out in real time. You can copy and paste others' shader effects from the community. In due time, you will get access to the Figma agent where you can then begin to prompt your own shader effects. I'll take a look at one more example right here, a lens distortion. Lens distortion, what I could do is apply it to maybe something else that we have here. I have my jelly animation. Here we go. I'm going to go over to effects and choose the shader beta, and we're going to apply, let's do a dither. There we go. I'm going to apply a dither. Let's see if that'll work. All right, there we go. Now I'm dithered and I could see my animation with a dither. Dither, it's not looking so great. So let's apply, I'm gonna do a lens distortion. There we go. Lens distortion is fun. And I could actually see how that's being applied. I could apply like a chromatic aberration. Let's set it like, whoa, let's make it anamorphic. Anamorphic, ooh, that's too much. But I can hit play and the animation is still going to play. What it's doing is it's affecting all of the layers and everything that's sitting beneath it. And then there's going to be other interactive bits that are going to allow you to make adjustments on this. And yes, you can stack shaders. I can add a shader on top of a shader, such as that halftone one. And we can see the like halftone application just as that. And yes, that can be exported and then shared as a MP4. All right, so shader fills is another concept. And once again, this too, we have a bunch of presets. Shader fills can also be animated. A shader fill is on a layer. So a shader effect affects layers. Think of it as a verb, and a shader fill is a noun. It is a layer. To add a fill layer, I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to delete this one. I'm going to add a fill. I'm going to come over here to add in one of the existing ones that we have. We have like water. We have concentric patterns. We got a nebula. We can create like a little nebula that we can then generate in real time. And then any of these values, right? See this travel? I can animate that. I'm going to create a keyframe for that travel. I'm going to create a keyframe for travel. And then I'm going to move down over here and we're going to travel far into the galaxy. And when I hit play, you're going to see we're going now through space, the final frontier. These voyages are so you can make all kinds of really rad stuff. Now, when you get access to the agent, you will be able to begin prompting your own shaders, being able to identify like what are going to be the effects that you want to apply. Once again, because this is a layer fill, it's a shader fill, you can add other layers on top of it. Let's say if I want to add like a red effect, I can come over here and I can apply like a red screen and I can increase that. And then now I have like a red version of the stars. These layers you can stack and also apply and make them look how you want if you're trying to get a specific look or an effect and you want to export that out as a visual. A couple other shaders that we have here. This one is a fun little pattern grid. You can like adjust like spacing, size. And then once again, because this is keyframed, when you apply another keyframe, you're going to see nice little fun animations. I can copy that first keyframe, move this over, and we're going to animate there. How cool is that? And then let's say if I want to apply an effect, I can easily move that effect over. These are two shader fills that I made in Community. The fun thing about these, this is a concentric shape. By adding this fill of a concentric pattern, I can choose how this is rendering into that shape. And once again, it's a fill, so it's its own layer. It's not affecting anything else. What I could do is I have this offset value, and I created this offset value to animate it more easily. I could just click the keyframe. I can move this over to frame 1. I can click that again, move that offset over. And what that offset does is it makes it a fun, infinite animation, right? And once again, this is making use of an ease in out. If you want it to be constant, this would be an instance where you would apply a linear motion. So it's just going to constantly go. And then once again, you can edit these properties live as I'm like playing this. Let's say I want to adjust the ring count or even like adjust the angle. So I could do all sorts of fun things. The sky's the limit in what you can accomplish. We also have added agent plugins and tools. If you go over here to tools, you're going to find some things. I'm going to show you the Bento tool, the Bento. And when you're searching for stuff, you're going to find other plugins from the community as well. If you want to find ones that are by Figma, those are truly going to be free unless they use AI credits. Here, I'm going to click on the Bento builder. This is actually one that I built. When you have access to agent, you will be able to request and prompt actions that you want to create yourself. I wanted to make a bento builder. So I take a bunch of shapes and basically asks me how big I want my bento. So 1920 by 1080. I want 6 rows, 4 columns, and I've selected objects and I'm going to generate a bento. Oh no, let's see. I might have done something. Let's generate. No, cannot set grid child. Oh, I think there's just something in the way here. Let me try. Let me try again. Generate. Building bento grid. No, what did I do? Sorry, let me try that one more time. Bento bit grid builder. I don't think they have my most recent one. I'm going to build a bento with not empty frames, but sample copy. And we're going to click generate. And there we go. I have a bento. Now I can change the amount of rows that I have. I can reduce it. I can have columns and I can even change the corner radius on those. And then I can randomize that layout and just get a different layout every time. If I don't want it to be sample copy, but instead image placeholders, I can have that be image placeholders or go back to just empty frames and then even change to a dark theme or a minimal theme. And I think I need to fix my bento, but I got an output here. That looks great. I can randomize that layout and that looks cool. One other one that I have here is object scatter. Object scatter is one that I prompted myself. Here on the left, I'm going to be able to see created by me. As you get access to agent and are able to make your own, you can make ones like this. What this is an object scatter. I basically said, make me a plugin that's going to create duplicate copies of an object and randomly place them. Here's my object scatter. I'm going to run that. This is a plugin that is generative. Now I can add more and I create the copies first. There we go. Now I randomize. I can create little layouts for myself. Now if I press R, I draw a little shape. And here we go. I'm going to move this in. If you're in the file, you should have access to this tool. They will be able to be shared via the community pretty soon if you don't. Here, I have this object. I'm going to reduce the opacity. Now I'm going to create copies and then I can randomize them. This is a plugin that I went into Agent. I basically said, make me a plugin that takes an object, give me the ability to adjust the randomization of the scale, the rotation, and how it's placed. And it allows me to build the tools that I then want to design with. Over here, this is not available to anybody yet. So nobody has access to 3D transforms. This is something that we premiered at Figma, and what it allows you to do is create objects in a 3D space. Here, I'm able to like position and control this object, and what is really, 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 really cool about this is I can even set keyframes to how it gets animated, so I can like control the positioning of it. And I'll show you an animation that I was able to concoct for the config keynote, where I have these objects and they're animating and animates out into place. And so the keyframes are all listed here. I like walk through the building and construction of that. And when I click on that scene, you can actually see how the spaces of those objects are. I have 3 nested frames. I have this main frame, it's set as 3D. I have this one, which has some perspective applied. And then I have the objects that are inside of it. And I'm adjusting their X rotation, their Y rotation, their Z rotation, as well as their position as well. Just wanted to give you a heads up with that. I know that seemed like a lot. It absolutely was a lot. Please make sure that you come back and watch the recording. I am going to head on over to see questions that you all may have. All right, so can you adjust the frames per second frame rate for the motion timeline? Not yet, but that is definitely something that is being worked on because we know that it is highly requested. How do you export an animation to place on a website? How do you export the keyframe animation as code? You can get the keyframe animation in dev mode. You can also use it as context. You can send an animation to Figma Make. You can send an animation to using like an LLM, and what that is as you prompt it, you can get it to say, hey, take a look at this. Now, it's not perfect yet, but it's getting better. All of the animation and code context is there. One thing that I've done is when I'm passing it off to an LLM, I usually say, make sure you're reading the nested animation. If you have like nested animations within many layers of frames, just make sure that the LLM is looking through the structure of Figma in order to do it. The MCP server will provide all of that context. So if that's something that you're attempting to do, otherwise all of the code exists within dev mode, can be inspected and brought over. We are looking in the future for other formats such as Lottie. If you want to export Lottie files from Figma, you could do that. Right now, you can also export animated SVG. So that too can work. Is shape bending in the future of animation old Flash feature? I totally remember shape tweens. Right now, there is a generative tool, like a generative plugin that will allow for simple shape tweens. Can't comment on roadmap, but it is definitely something that we are looking to do. You're probably going to notice some feelings of those when you're playing around with Arc Tool animations. If I were to start an animation in Figma Make, could I import it into Figma Motion? I think you could take something from Figma Motion, from Figma Make back into Motion. I may have to look at that. Typically, when you're copying a design from Figma Make and bringing it into Motion, bringing it back to Figma, it's just copying the static layers. I'm going to have to double check on that. I know it can go the other way around. Are Figma animations available in Figma Slides? I believe that is still right now when we take some of the animations, just because of some of the complexity and the performance of them. What I usually do is I export them as like a video, and then I bring that over to Figma Slides. What I would do is give it a try. I remember the last time I tested it, it wasn't working, but it very may well just start working at some point in the future, much like how the variables changed for me today. And I was like, oh, wait, where do I set this variable? You know, Figma is a product. It lives and breathes and it grows and it changes. So one day you just might see them magically work in that space. Give it a try and let me know. Is it possible to export the animation in JSON? I remember there being an option very similar to that previously. If I come over here to CSS, I believe I can go to open in timeline view. And let's say if I select that, I can go, yes, there we go. You can, in fact, get your animation as a JSON formatted representation. So 100%, yes, you can. Fantastic question with that. Hold on. Let me just go back to my files. Where was I? There we go. Let me go back to my example. And let me exit out of dev mode and go back to thank you. Okay, cool. When it comes to exporting, can you export each frame? Like, let's say you're making a storyboard with each frame as an animation. How do you export all three as an example? Oh, so this is something that we didn't necessarily cover. Absolutely. Let's say if you want to break out your animation into chunks, I'm going to just do this one last example pretty quick, just so you can see it. Let's say I have this animation. Let's say this animation is this long. I can convert that to a component. So I have animation one, anchor point. Animation two, let's take a look at its timeline. I'm going to move this over. Animation two, and now we have animation two. That's one, two, and then three. We got animation three. Let's take a look at its timeline. Let's make that a little bit smaller. And so what we're doing is we're componentizing each of these. Now I can create a frame and we can link them all up. One, two, and three. And then basically you can use this as a way to like make your animations visible. What I may do here is, let's say I'm going to set the, or I'm just going to turn off the opacity here because they have like backgrounds and everything. Normally when I make these, it's like hidden, or I have something fade in or fade out. The way that I'm going to construct this is I'm going to have this first one. I'm going to select, actually here, let's do this. I'm going to do them all at the same time. And we're going to turn on their opacity, and I'm going to have their opacity at 0% to begin with. And then I'm going to have this first one viewable. And I'm going to show you one additional property that we didn't talk about today. This one's going to be visible. Sorry for the impromptu example. All right, so here, I'm going to make sure this is visible and playing. There we go. This is going to play. You make sure my frame matches up with everything. Basically, what I'm trying to show you here is that, yes, you can componentize all of the pieces and then see them play out in real time. Then basically here, I can say, all right, now this one is going to be visible. Normally, I would construct this with kind of like build-ins, build-outs. And then I want this little piece over here at the end. And so it goes from there, and then this may like crossfade. Let's just have this crossfade out. Let's use a opacity and choose a fade out. And then now I got a little fade out, and then there we go. Got the last little bit here. Let's set this to fade out. Actually, just copy that. There we go. Boom. There we go. So that fades out. And here I can move the looping underneath it. Boom. It's got that one. And then the last one. And this one, let's just make sure it's visible. Who cares? Appearance, 100%. Boom. There you go. Now that'll crossfade to that one. There we go. And then there you go. Now you have three scenes that were independently constructed from one another, and they're like crossfading however you wish to bring them in. Here, stack that and stack that. And then it animates out. How cool is that? All right, so yeah, components are going to be your friend when you're componentizing your animations. But I wanted to say thank you all for being with me on this journey today. There is so much more that has yet to be talked about. Please sign up for further Figma for EDU workshops and shout us out on LinkedIn, on Instagram, wherever you may be. And hopefully we'll see you at the next one.